Good day, fam. What is up? Today's Wednesday wisdom is going to be a little bit different. Maybe similar to last week in sharing some of my own experience and being vulnerable with you, because that is one of my biggest lessons that I continue to learn for myself is not so much just feeling the feels, but actually being vulnerable and sharing. And I'm at a certain point in my life where I've started to recognize the feelings and being able to process them and allow them to be there, but actually being able to be vulnerable, that is a continuum for me. So today I'm really bringing you an alchemist perspective on a persevering through a challenge, and also how alchemy works in utilizing the elements when you're working through something, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. And this is like the beauty of really honing into an alchemy practice and really working with those elements and allowing yourself the space to do so. So what do I mean by that? So, this summer for me has been on an emotional level very like up and down. And what I mean by that is I would go through a phase of like lots of excitement, like super excited. And then it would like sink down and I would be in a borderline of like apathy and depression, right? But I want to give you an alchemist perspective of actually working through that. So, depression and apathy is definitely not the first time that I've been in this emotion, so I can recognize it a lot easier and faster. Not that it's ever fun to be in, because those heavier emotions aren't always fun to be in, right? But being able to recognize it faster and quicker is what actually allows you to start mastering your emotions. It doesn't mean you control them or they control you. You recognize what's happening and allows yourself the space to do so. And for me, I was in a really depressive state when I stopped coaching tennis. Like, I was really, really depressed. And that took me a while to work through. And now this summer, it actually has a trickle down effect because tennis in my life brought so much meaning and purpose. And even though I share these videos and I'm in a completely different industry, it does bring a certain level of fulfillment, but not in the same context that tennis did for me. And I really started to understand a different angle of what is starting to come out for this emotional process. So one of the elements I've been working with is water. Water in this lifetime for me has been one of the hardest elements to really allow myself to move through and really work with. And yeah, compared to like air is like, gosh, air is breath for me, like really, really easy. But for others, and that's not to say it always, at times it's easy. I don't mean that, but for the most part, like air is super easy. Like I am air and air is me. Like for those who understand that statement, you'll get it, right? And some of the other elements are a little bit more natural for me, but I've still had to really cultivate with, which is, fire and earth, especially, even though I'm a Virgo, just because, there's certain placements as an alchemist perspective, we're working with all of them. So just because it's in a certain area of your chart, yes, that can be beneficial, right? And the other thing I want to say is when you are working through certain emotions or even physical pain or burnout or fatigue, right? Whether that's physical or emotional and even spiritual and combination of all of it, in the beginning, it can be really hard to discern and figure out what you're actually feeling, right? It takes practice, it takes experience, right? To go through those emotions. So a lot of the time, not that everyone seeks help, but, it is important to find someone to hold space for you. And also, depending on who that person is, right? You want to trust them, you want to be able to connect with them. But also, it depends on the type of person you're working with. So what do I mean by that? A lot of the time, depending on the type of doctor you go to, whether it's for physical or emotional or mental, right? What do? They label you. They diagnose you that you have this and that this is you, right? So I really, 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 really urge you to be careful and not allow, have you ever heard analysis paralysis, right? Once you get diagnosed, don't let that analysis paralyze you because you are actually not that label. Now, I'm not saying not to go to those people to guide and help you. What I'm saying is, don't let the label become who you are, because ultimately it's not who you are. You're going through a phase in your life that maybe you actually, for an alchemist perspective, are being called to either learn something or work with that emotion, have a different perspective on what you are actually seeing and feeling at that time. Maybe you're being called into something so much greater that in this current moment you can't see because you're so consumed by what you're feeling. And it does feel that way. It really feels like you are so consumed in that feeling, whether it's anxiety or fear or depression or apathy or even fatigue, worn out, right? Just, and there's so many other ones, right? So really, really, I caution you that it's great to identify what, especially if you're not sure whether it's a physical thing, right? Like it's definitely important to utilize those services, right? To find out, especially when you don't know whether it's a physical element or an emotional element. But then don't become that label. That is the important thing. Use your discernment. Okay, this is what's going on with my body at this time. Say, it's diabetes or weight loss, or maybe you have certain bone structures going on, or a certain emotion. I have anxiety. I'm bipolar. I'm, depressed. Whatever could be mentally, physically, or emotionally happening. Really, really be cautious of what you are saying. I am this, right? I am that, and labeling yourself. And then what can happen, it inhibits you, right? It paralyzes you. Instead of, okay, let me use this analysis and diagnosis, but it doesn't mean I am that. and how you can work accordingly. What are the steps that I need to take now? So that is when it's useful, but it's not useful when you say, I am that diagnosis. And really, really be careful with that, because it can, like I said, it can start to inhibit how you want to live your life, how you want to connect with other people. And it can automatically, right? You can get an analysis, right, and get a certain diagnosis for whatever's happening with you, and then it will put you into depression, right, or anxiety, or this massive fear of your life. And it is crucial to be careful in how you want to view that and how you want to use it. So from an alchemist perspective, right? So say, for example, anger, right? That can really be utilized through the fire element and how you want to connect with the fire element. And this isn't just to go say, let me light a candle and light a match and like start a fire. That's not what I'm telling you. And, you know, it's really being able to use your discernment, learning more about yourself and all facets of yourself, right? You can really start to learn and master yourself, and not letting someone else dictate, or even for some manipulate, right, what is happening on the outside, especially with the world going on, not just like on an individual self, but on a collective self, right? And so fire, right, you can really learn to cultivate and use that anger in a more healthy way when you can learn to connect with fire. And then say, for example, anxiety. Well, what typically happens, it happens in all these, but really in anxiety, your breath completely 100% changes, and that's when you can go into a panic attack. So that's where the element of air, learning how to connect with air and creating a practice, and that's where alchemy is so beneficial and how you can use that. And there are specific practices, and these practices are under safe and sacred spaces. This isn't just something to, of course you can try it, but ideally if you're in a very heavy motion, I really urge you to find, if you haven't already, find someone to hold space for you. Or if you have found someone and you feel you're at a plateau, maybe, just taking a step back. I'm not saying not to work with that person, but just take a step back and see it, and use your discernment. Is this person providing you the space that you really need, or is it actually you not seeing what they're actually assisting and helping you with, right? And sometimes when we're in those heavy emotions, it's also hard to see. So this is a process of mastering, right? Being able to master. And then, apathy or depression, right? You really feel like you've lost meaning or purpose, or just really, sunk into a space. And that's where the water element can really help you in finding that flow again, right? Because water is constantly moving and flowing and changing, right? It's like the one element that can change into different forms, whether it's liquid, gas, or solid. So when you're in those heavier states, water can really help you start to move again and work through that emotion. And then earth, right? Sometimes it can be a physical pain or fatigue or worn out. So like, what do you actually need on a very earthly element? Maybe it's rest and recovery. Maybe it's massage. Maybe it's Reiki. Maybe it's sound healing. Maybe you need to go to the chiropractor, or acupuncture, or physical therapy, or maybe you do actually need surgery. Maybe surgery is the only way, right? And, Or it could be nutrition, right? Physically, like certain physical needs. Maybe you're not getting the proper minerals and vitamins that your body actually needs right now, or water in a very physical way. So that is, I'm giving you a perspective through an alchemist, and how, through these different challenges, you can actually start to persevere. But in that perseverance, like I wrote on my Monday mindset affirmation, it doesn't mean you escape from this physical, emotional, or mental pain, or agony, or agitation, or despair, right? You start to work with it. And that is one of the biggest things. And the difference is, compared to going, to a psychologist per se, in this case, alchemy starts to give you a practice, a ritual, a sacred practice, including the mind, body, and spirit, not just the mental realm or not just the physical realm, but all of it, connecting all of it, mind, body, and spirit. And, one of my greatest tools, I personally think, is actually perseverance. Anyone who watched me when I competed in tennis, I was like the third set queen. And anyone who knows about third sets, it is about that trust in yourself, especially when it's like a battle out there, right? Dog eat dog, like really digging it out, right? You really have to trust yourself, especially when either you're under mental or physical or even emotional fatigue. You really have to dig deep and start to really trust yourself. And that was probably one of, I personally think, my greatest strengths. I know everyone will view me differently, right? But perseverance has always been one of my greatest strengths. And no matter what I've physically worked through in my life, or mentally or emotionally, there was always a side that I knew, no matter what, at some point, I would persevere through it. And it really, when you start to utilize an alchemy practice, it can allow you to start to feel connected back to yourself, back to your heart center, back to those elements that which we are, right? We are those elements. And it's just in a certain type of practice that really gets you back to connecting to yourself in those really older ways that we used to connect, right? Before we became so industrialized, right? And it's what we need now more than ever is actually connected. Like, we're so disconnected on a humanity level, on a collective level. Like, we are so disconnected. And, many people are using that disconnection to their advantage, right? And allowing getting the worst of you, right? So let's bring it back to ourselves and being able to connect with ourselves. So if you would like to learn more of an alchemy practice, a sacred practice, my information will be in the description box. This is part of the reason why I'm also bringing alchemy more to the community. I just did a Merkaba activation, but it's so much more than just activating your Merkaba. And for those who took the class, you will know what I mean by that. And if you were ever interested or are interested, I do have a recording for that, so you can still purchase it and get that class. I will be bringing more to the community. I'm still in the process of figuring that out. For some people, they can just like whip up, so many classes, boom, 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 but I don't really work that way, or not yet. Hopefully things will start to happen a little bit faster for me. But as of right now, things take me, a little bit longer into today's world, right? So yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to share with you in this. So, yeah, this is the beauty of a true alchemist practice and being able to connect and call out and work with those energies and those elements and utilizing it. All right, guys, so I hope you have a grateful day. And of course, most definitely, abundant blessings to all, and really a lot of compassion. Wherever you are in your life, I really urge you to utilize compassion. It's something we really need on a collective level, but also personally, right? It's something that we can utilize wherever we are in our emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual state. Compassion can always bring us back. And seeing the blessing and seeing the opportunity with that blessing. All right. I hope you have a grateful day and, get a little bit of silly with it, right? I know this was a little bit heavier, but have some fun, get a little silly with it. All right, guys. Much love.